What we are, you will become. A parasite, absorbing soul. Will suck your culture, brains, energy. It blocks your genes to our collective being. Don't fight against us. Resistance is futile. Resistance is futile. And you will be assimilated with Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here with Andrew Yeoman. He is the founder of the Bay Area National Anarchists. Hey, Andrew, thanks for being on my show.
Thanks, Robert. It's a pleasure.
So when people hear the ideology of the organization, it's called National Anarchism, and it's very interesting because when you first hear the name, I think a lot of people might say, oh, it's an oxymoron, because anarchism, generally people think of anarchism as the abolition of a government, and they think nationalism is required based on a nation state. So can you just sort of explain sort of the basics of the national anarchist philosophy?
Sure, Robert. Yeah, it's really interesting. Depending on a person's ideological stance, they either hear one word or the other, usually the word they don't like first. And national anarchism is an ideology that states that a nationality, or that is a ethnic, cultural group of people that share a common history and heritage, have similar interests in their own public and civic life, more so than people that are not of the same nationality. And anarchism desires autonomy from the government and state for people to live the kinds of lives that they want to live without being interfered with.
So in like the United States, it can apply to giving different ethnic groups that alternative, but there are different groups. Like what if some people, if they want to live in a multicultural area, they can have that choice? Because I know there are racial separatists. Their dream is kind of to carve up the country into like different racial zones, but then they would be forcing people to live somewhere they don't want, and that would involve like ethnic cleansing. But your idea would give people the option. Places that are sort of homogenous could stay that way, but people who want a more like a liberal or a multicultural lifestyle, they would also have that alternative to have that lifestyle as well.
That's right. And it's my belief that it's not desirable to force people to live in communities that they don't want to live in or that they don't want to be a part of. For some people, a multicultural society is perfect for them. That's what they enjoy, and they should live in that kind of environment. For some people, multicultural society is not the way how they want to live their lives. And national anarchism provides people that choice, that option. They can visit the other areas if they want to. They can go into, the Chinatown or the Japantown or, the European American areas and have those kinds of differences so that people's cultural integrity is preserved and people can live the kind of life that they want to. What it really comes down to is respect and the freedom of association, something that is denied in the current democratic system that we live in today.
But there still be nation states with borders.
There would definitely be boundaries of some sort, just like there will still be property. We've kind of refined the idea down to localism, like on a village kind of scale level or in a confederation kind of arrangement. And we are tending to use the word more tribal anarchism to kind of denote how the different zones would be allocated, in that your tribe is the kind of group who have the lifestyle, values, and other traits that you believe describes your nationality best. And that is where you could create your community, or live in the community that already exists, and kind of live the life that you want to live to raise a family in and be safe and comfortable in.
And would there be some kind of military confederation? I like a lot of these ideas, but one concern would be, like, let's say the United States breaks up into these different confederations. Would we be vulnerable from a military attack from, say, China, and would we be able to have a military to defend ourselves?
Well, I can refer to history on that point, where a Japanese general during World War II dismissed the idea of invading America because there would be a rifle behind every blade of grass. And I don't really think that that's a likely scenario. I think that the idea of national anarchism is to work with other nationalities and other groups in a kind of a collaborative way, in that shared defensive arrangements would be possible. There would definitely be alliances and promises of protection that any kind of tribal or national system would provide, just on a smaller, more local level, rather than a continent-wide one that we have at the current day.
But one thing I do find very fascinating is it is more of an inclusive movement, because it does integrate ethno-nationalism. But the thing about the ethno-nationalist movement in America, it's kind of dominated by the white nationalist movement, and that there's some good things about that movement, but it is kind of exclusive, because it's about exclusively sort of for whites. But this movement, you can sort of have that mutual respect for ethnic self-determination, but you can work with other people of all backgrounds who sort of share those values.
That's right. Yeah, national anarchism is explicitly designed to force you to work with other nationalities and other ethnic groups, etc., to work on issues of common cause. White nationalist really doesn't have that much to say to a Tibetan nationalist or a Palestinian or various other groups that, in the bigger context, we have a lot of common interests with. And I think it's really important to work with all kinds of people that you're compatible with. And I think that this allows us to do so on a kind of an equal footing, in that we give respect towards other groups implicitly, and we behave towards others on our best footing, and through diplomacy and negotiation, work with people to make agreements that everyone is happy with at the end of the day.
The Bay Area where you live, it's extremely diverse. Have you had more of a positive reaction and negative reaction varies from the different ethnic groups in that area?
That's an interesting question. I would say our most prominent detractors are whites that live in the Bay Area, liberals in particular, some communists, some anarchists, but they don't like the whole idea actually of leaving the federal and state system of the democracy that we live in today. So they kind of dismiss these ideas out of hand as being either impractical or utopian or etc. And they really dislike that we identify with our national heritage as white Americans, and they find that very threatening. They have images of Jim Crow and apartheid or the Nazi regimes, which are really ridiculous in comparison to the goals that we have, are really quite distinct and different from those previous social movements. The bottom line is that they don't know how to react to us, so they react with the lowest common denominator, or the worst possible expectation. And so we've gradually been working on those kinds of perceptions through, hearts and minds activism and doing good deeds that kind of make us look good in the community, and it helps our community out as well, from doing donations for cystic fibrosis fundraisers to doing beach cleanups to helping the homeless and just taking an active community service role. And that's helped with some perceptions among the white populations. Most other ethnic groups are not really familiar with national anarchism, even though they may implicitly be living a kind of national anarchist lifestyle. The prominent Japanese American community in San Francisco is a good example of that, where they're a very insular, very tight-knit community that kind of stays among themselves. Same with the ethnic Chinese population, and even the Hispanics to some degree. So none of those groups are really familiar with us as much as the whites are. There are some black groups that are aware of us. We've had some so-called anti-fascist black people attack us in the past, but really the only people that really care about us is whites. And I kind of put the terms of our struggle, or describe the terms of our struggle in a way that our cause is really a struggle for our people's spirit, and like, where is our spirit's energies and directions going to be going into, because that's really what matters, is what our own nationality is doing and thinking and wanting, as opposed to what any other group might want or desire.
So you grew up in the Bay Area, or you moved there later on?
I moved here 5 years ago from the South. I'm originally from the Detroit, Michigan area.
So did your experience in the Bay Area, did that have a huge impact on your political views?
It did, in that it made me angry. I became frustrated over time with, a lot of the more negative elements associated with living in a big city. The graffiti, the crime, the gangbangers, the prostitution, all the different things that make a big city bad, and that did not used to be like that in San Francisco. And there's other things too, like the Chinese Americans have their own Chinese newspapers printed locally that are all in Chinese. There's no English on it. There's the Hispanic newspapers that are all in Hispanic. There's all these different nationalities, and you can go ride a bus and not hear any English spoken for quite a long time. And that was really frustrating to me, because you see all the old Victorian architecture, you see the great achievements and design of the city, and it's a very beautiful, stunning place to live, and then you see things that make you feel like you are living in a foreign country. And so that made me very frustrated, and over time I started looking for answers to this frustration, and was fortunate, in my view, to have different communities online to talk about these grievances about, and also to find eventually national anarchism.
You started the group, and can you sort of go over the history of just the foundation, and after that?
Sure. Well, the foundation happened, I believe, in September 2006, where I met the Australian national anarchist Velf Herforth. And Velf visited me with the explicit goal of talking about what the Australian national anarchist movement was doing, and his philosophy and the way that they were doing things down there. And I was really impressed by Velf and his goals and what they were doing down there. And so I decided that weekend that national anarchism was something that I wanted to share with more people in the country, and to put those ideas into practice.
You've gone out on political protest and you're volunteering. Can you tell us about some of your volunteer work?
Sure. The volunteering, we do kind of what you could say is bread and butter community service actions, and that is, helping the homeless. We do this campaign called the White Cross Patrol, where we get together and we make care packages full of food and some sanitary items that we get and make the packages, and then we'll go out on patrol and find homeless people and provide them with the package. And we've done this in a few cities now. As far away as Sacramento, we've gone to Berkeley and other places. And we'll often, because there's so many homeless people in the area, be able to run out of packages within half an hour, 15 minutes of going on patrol. And it's really, heartening to be able to share these items with people and hear their stories and just try to help them out and, let them know that people care about them in their situation. And we're fairly careful to make sure that we don't provide these packages to, the people that choose to be homeless or trust fund punks or people that are addicted to drugs. We try to help people that want to get back on their feet but have just been having hard luck to do so. And
did you help out the Epic Beard Man?
Well, we did do that. When Epic Beard Man was released, I was actually one of the first to talk to him on the phone. We had made sure that, he wasn't arrested and that he wasn't going to have any charges pressed against him for that incident, and we made a donation to him to kind of help cover for the expenses for the trouble he had to go through with that, and try to look after him for a bit. I was able to arrange a meeting with the two filmmakers, Nathan Mass and another guy, Aaron, who made the film I Am a Motherfucker about Epic Beard Man and his experiences.
And you've also been volunteering. You've done some stuff like for the environment, and you've cleaned up beaches.
Yeah, we've cleaned up beaches in Berkeley. We'll do runs infrequently where we'll go with trash bags and clean up the beaches. A few years ago, I participated in the oil spill cleanup when the Chinese vessel hit one of the Bay Bridge's stands. That was a really big ordeal where you go into hazmat suits and go into the beach and pick up little oil deposits, and I was kind of thinking of wanting to do the same thing along the Gulf Coast with the recent oil spill. And so we do that, and when we go on camping trips or walks through the national parks or state parks, we always try to make sure to clean up any trash that we might find around.
Interesting how you bring up these different issues, how certain issues can sort of who appeal to more to the left. So you have like the environmentalist issue, you have the anti-war issue. Those issues could appeal more kind of to the liberal side on some issues. Then you have the immigration stuff that can appeal more to conservatives. But the problem is that you were saying how the left has this real kind of a stigma towards anything that is kind of like ethno-nationalism, or even not even ethno-nationalism, just the word nationalist by itself. Some liberals have sort of appreciated some of your positions, like not on the environment, or how you've also spoken out against the war and you protested against AIPAC when they came to San Francisco.
Yes. So we do a lot of what you would call traditional street activism, in that we go to protests, we pass out flyers, we talk to people about the issues, and we show that you can care about the environment, you can be against endless wars in the Middle East, and you can be an ethnic nationalist, and that there is really no huge disconnect between the three. In fact, in my opinion, if you're an ethnic nationalist and you're not for a healthy environment, there's something wrong with you, because a healthy environment is implicit to being able to have a healthy nation. And so, we touch base on all those issues, and we really do try to bring people together in areas of common interest. Most right-wingers that I know of, I don't know if I've ever met a right-winger that really supported the invasion of Iraq. I know I met some that supported the invasion for Afghanistan because that's where the Taliban was. But I don't see any support among the radical right or left for either occupation in the present day. Just working with these groups and doing what needs to be done. Yet the immigration issue is really kind of a hot one for the local area because most people, including liberals, are fed up with the sanctuary city status and the effect that illegal immigration has had on our state. But for political reasons, because they're vying for that community's votes, their leaders don't have a choice, and that they have to support this invasion into our area for political reasons, to try to get votes, either with fake voter rolls or whatever. There was a recent story, I believe it's called Mayfield, California, where the city, which is 97% Hispanic now, just fired their entire police department and everyone in the city government except for the mayor. And all their social services for that community are really going to go down the gutter because they didn't handle the illegal immigration issue. And, it's a disaster. And we're moving in a slow disaster in the Bay Area, but I think the consequences could be even worse.
So what you'd say is the illegal immigration situation up in the Bay Area, would you say is it as bad as it is in LA?
I don't think it's that bad. I've not been to LA myself, so I can't really give a specific example. I've been to Orange County. There are parts of the Bay Area that resemble like Orange County, Barreros. There are certain industries in the Bay Area where if you are not Hispanic, you're just not going to get hired. You're not going to be hired as a cook in a restaurant. You're not going to be hired to do construction work. You're not going to be hired to do landscaping work. A lot of these kind of fields require you speaking Spanish, and janitorial work is the same way, and it's increasing the amount of displacement in those fields, mostly working class fields, but that'll change. It's really tough to be able to make a living in those areas in the current economic situation and by not speaking Spanish.
And you protested against illegal immigration in Petaluma, and Petaluma, it's known for being a very liberal community, but you said on the responses you got about at least half of the people there agreed with you.
Yeah, that's correct. And, there's a lot of the things that you don't hear covered in the media is a large amount of support for this. I will add that at that protest, our position statement was stop all immigration. And we took that position due to ideological reasons. One, we're anarchists, and we're not for the government manipulating population levels and the support of the government due to granting citizenship to just anybody that comes along. And also for environmental reasons, to slow down sprawl and other ugly developments that come from an increased population, and also to sidestep the entire charge of this being a racially fueled issue, which it is not, and that we want to stop to all immigration, not just illegal immigration. Then we're showing that this is not just a racial issue or an ethnic one, but an actual economic and environmental issue.
But you make a really excellent point, because a lot of libertarian types, and even anarchists especially, they see it as immigration as a free market thing. They think the government should stay out. They view it as like government intervention. But you make the point, which actually it's the other way around. Immigration is the government intentionally changing the demographics of a country. Yeah, and it's really obvious to show, you got to ask yourself, for any public policy issue, who benefits
for having this policy in place. In our country, it's obviously the Democratic Party, where they swoop up, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but they at least the majority of the Hispanic vote. So they want more Hispanic voters to come in. In the United Kingdom, it's obviously the Labour Party who has been promoting immigration for decades in order to be able to get all the new votes from all those immigrants that come
there
in.
was this. There was, I forget what specifically happened, but there was this meeting with the Labour Party. It was supposed to be secret, but it was leaked out that the Labour Party officials said that they wanted to use immigration as a tool to change the demographics of the UK so they could stay in power permanently.
Yeah, this is a democracy as dictatorship, and unfortunately, people on the left don't really think that far into these issues, and they call allowing people in here or opening the borders a human rights issue or an anti-racist issue when they're really not taking in the full ramifications of what they're allowing, because you're not going to allow a rapist or a murderer into your house, or why should you allow someone that comes into your land illegally to be provided all the benefits that your country has provided for its citizens? It makes no sense. So with the illegal immigration issue, you also have to consider other national interests and what nation is benefiting the most from having their surplus population move into a foreign country. Well, obviously, in the case of illegal immigration, the issue would be that Mexico is interested in this, and I know that there are cases of the Mexican government providing resources and training activists and paying people basically to promote legal immigration in this country to serve Mexico's national interests, which are not necessarily the same as America's national interests.
So you were talking about these different interest groups, these different reasons why we have open borders. A lot of it's the corporate interests. It's really the corporate interests, but the left has gone along with it. And I think it's really important to bring this up because the left is going on about how evil corporations are, and they're kind of right about a lot of that. But at the same time, the left has sort of embraced a lot of the same positions that the corporatist types have.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what they're unaware of is that they are serving the interests of the large multinational corporations that benefit from having a large labor pool that can lower wages, and that when workers compete amongst each other because they're fractured along lines of nationality, race, language, that the only people that benefit from that situation are the bosses. And you can, again, look at who benefits from this situation. It's definitely, your Walmarts, it's your corporate farming, your factory farms, and all these kind of unethical organizations that benefit. And so the call for open borders is one advanced by multinational corporations and by their unwitting fools, the open border advocates on the left, even on the right with free market advocates who believe that corporations should just control everything.
And really, if you look at the environmental issue, you were talking about the factory farming, like how factory farming is really it's a horrible thing, and it's dependent on this illegal labor. And on the environment, if you look at urban sprawl, I think where you live up in the Bay Area, they have done a much better job at conservation, but Southern California has really been ruined by a lot of this overdevelopment. But have you been speaking up about that up in your area?
On this issue, that's definitely involved, but not so much. We haven't been touching on the illegal immigration issue lately. Lately, of course, has been more emphasis on the ruling on the Oscar Grant shooting in Oakland and the reaction to the riot that recently occurred. And illegal immigration is an issue that comes up for us on occasion, and our position, again, is to just stop all immigration, sidestep the whole racial connotations to that policy, and have the left call us racist for that. because if we stop immigration to European countries as well, they won't have a leg to stand on with their debate.
The big recent thing you were saying is the Oscar Grant case. Can you just give us audience an overview of the situation in the BART where the police officer who he's being charged with I think it was with manslaughter in that case?
Yes, that was what the jury recently convicted the officer of last December, I believe it was, on BART train. Is during New Year's Eve. There was a rowdy fight on the BART. A white police officer had a black man in handcuffs below him, and for some reason went to draw his gun, and he shot the man on his back. And then you can see obvious confusion in the officer's actions where he thought he was grabbing for a taser that the police department had just recently been issued. And so it's a really tragic situation, tragic for Oscar Grant and his family, tragic for the officer involved. However, the response to that shooting by both the left and by blacks has been very racially charged, and that they accuse the officer of being racist, the BART system of being racist. Everybody's racist. Anyone that's white is racist in the left's playbook, and it was really troubling. So the conviction by jury was handed out last week, and he was giving a manslaughter and not a capital murder charge. And his family and other advocates of black people came out saying that this was a travesty of justice, that this was not a manslaughter charge but a murder charge. And there was large crowds of the streets of Oakland, and where there was some limited rioting events occurred there. It was a largely peaceful demonstration, and there was many calls for nonviolence, all the way up from the governor of the state, Schwarzenegger, called for calm. The mayor of Oakland called for calm, and a lot of community organizers were very deeply involved in trying to keep the situation under control. However, there was a group of about 50 to 75 white anarchists who attended the demonstration. And it has come out that most of these anarchists did not live in the Bay Area. They came from other cities. Which ones, I'm not sure, but probably from Oregon and Washington. And so most of them came from different cities, and they specifically came in black clothing and bandanas and started lighting trash bins on fire and smashing some store windows, and tried to start a riot. And it was a very tense experience. People that were riding the BART train back home were leaving work hours early to try to avoid BART being shut down and not being able to get home. And there's a lot of fear in the area, and you could sense it, that tensions were high. And I was watching the events unfold on TV and saw the first arrest happen, and it was pretty interesting. What we conferred on what to do in the situation in Banna, and we came to the consensus that appealing to calm would be the most honorable thing to do in the situation, because obviously smashing store windows does no justice to the man that died. It destroys property and does not send out any message out to the public other than a blind rage that has no politically useful purpose. And so we appealed to calm in the community to try to prevent people from getting hurt or from stores from being damaged, because we don't believe that that's in our community's best interest.
You were in the main paper, the SF Chronicle, and they mentioned your group?
Yes, that's right. In the letters to the editors section, the Bay Area National Anarchists were mentioned as an anarchist group that appealed for calm and for people to not commit acts of violence. And for anyone that knows the whole history between conflict between anarchist and national anarchist, that's quite a very ironic kudos that we received, because we're called a bunch of bad names by anarchists, and they call us not true anarchists, etc. And here we are making the anarchist look good in the national newspaper.
So the other anarchists, they're kind of, some of them are kind of left. There's left-wing anarchists where they just call themselves anarchists. Their main thing is they don't like your group because they strongly reject nationalism.
That's correct. They view nationalism in a very limited sense of Hitler and Nazis. They consider all nationalists are Nazis by default. It's a pretty humorous lowest common denominator line of thinking, and they assume that nationalism only means protecting or defending a nation state, when that's really was not the ultimate goal of the nationalist movements in the past, where achieving state power was important to previous nationalist movements and being put forth their agenda. However, nationalism has always been about building a strong community and helping people out, and a greater sense of identity and belonging that was unavailable through other means, and also pride in one's culture. And so we've been attacked by anarchists in the streets. I've received concussions. We've had female members attacked, and we've have to deal with a lot of threats from these people that would like to do us a lot of harm.
So that guy who attacked you, did he consider himself part of the anarchist movement, or is he just like an anti-fascist, anti-racist type?
Oh, well, I wasn't attacked by one person. I was attacked by 10. Cowards never attack by themselves. They only attack in groups. I don't know if they were a part of any organized groups. I believe a couple of them were affiliated with Anti-Racist Action. However, it was a mixed group that attacked us. There was blacks, whites, a couple females, and it was a very tense, very unfortunate situation.
How does the police, did they deal with the thugs who did that?
They were able to arrest 2 of the 10 people that attacked us. The rest were able to get away, and they were charged with felony crimes, but the recent judge reduced those to misdemeanors.
So they haven't awaited trial yet?
No, they haven't. Only preliminary trial.
And the local newspapers did report on that?
That's correct. Yeah, that occurred on May 1st of this year.
Were they fair in the coverage?
I would say they were. We were described as a white separatist organization. They characterized the event accurately. Yeah, we were on the television. One of our activists was interviewed on TV. I made a cameo with a big bruise on my head, and yeah, it was quite an experience.
Did your group do the memorial for Francis Parker Yockey, or that was another group where you attended?
Yeah, that was our group for Francis Parker Yockey. He was a American intellectual third positionist, active from pretty much the 1930s to the year 1960. In 1960, he died under mysterious conditions in a San Francisco jail cell, and being the 50th anniversary of his death, we felt that it would be the honorable thing to commemorate that event, and so we held a flower-lined memorial at the Hall of Justice where he died, and we had a speaker event where Dr. Michael O'Meara made a presentation on Yockey's ideas in life.
Did you get a strong response from the public, or did they pay attention?
That was kind of a privately held event, and so we did not advertise that very wide. We were initially planning on advertising it publicly, but we felt that, all things considered, that we wanted only trusted people to be involved.
So what were some of his political ideologies? So he was a figure in the America First movement during World War II, but then later on he was sort of considered part of the far right, but he did take an interesting position on communism because he was very critical of the Cold War.
That's right. He has very interesting ideas and very radical ideas to the contemporary American mind, in that he viewed World War II as a travesty for Western civilization, and he believed that the superpowers that arise from the collapse of European autonomy or sovereignty was detrimental to the future of the peoples of Europe and North America. He viewed both capitalism and communism as detrimental to the people of Europe, and so he tried to develop a third positionist ideology that was critical of elements of Western culture, but designed to help overcome the imperialist mission of American capitalism and the worst elements of Soviet communism.
So he was not at all sympathetic to communism. He was anti-communist, but what was his main sort of criticism of the Cold War? Did you think that it was sort of being kind of fabricated just to benefit the banking elites because making the bankers richer?
Yeah, there's definitely that critique of the economics in Yaqui. However, he was a subversive revolutionary, and he wasn't above helping the enemies of his enemies. And so, with that in mind, he was known to work for certain intelligence agencies of the Soviet bloc, and was considered a so-called communist spy because of his work for that.
And that's why what he was in. He was in jail awaiting trial for those charges?
When he was arriving, he arrived to San Francisco, I believe, a few days prior, and he realized that his luggage got lost by the airplane. So he went to stay at a friend of his who happened to be a Hasidic Jew in East Bay. And when the airline employees opened up his luggage, they noticed a dozen passports, all with the same picture on it. So they contacted the FBI, and the FBI was able to pick him up in East Bay. And he was being held at the Hall of Justice for further questioning. And I know that there was fear that he might have become poisoned or killed in jail, or be made to go insane like Ezra Pound was.
So there was never like an autopsy and solid proof what happened to him?
Well, I think there was an autopsy. It was known that he died of cyanide poisoning. So somehow or another he had cyanide pills smuggled into him, and there was a cryptic note found under his pillow that no one would possibly suspect who it was that had provided it to him.
So he was considered kind of the father of the third positionist ideology. So national anarchism is kind of an offshoot of that, because you reject communism, but you also reject a lot of capitalism as well.
Yeah, I would say that Yaqui is a American third positionist, an influential American one. There are European third positionists as well, going back to the 30s with influential, the Strasser brothers in the National Socialist movement. There was others in the 80s and 90s in Europe. I can mention Troy Southgate is one in the early 90s, and out of the third positionist movements, a few of those intellectuals started thinking about, well, we don't necessarily want a kind of like a national Bolshevism, which is actually a fairly popular current in Russia, but a national anarchism would allow us to move away from the government's control, establish our own independent areas where we can live the kinds of lives that we want to live, and be able to keep the struggle going on for our people in a way that the hate speech laws and other laws designed to destroy the European people are being fought.
Yeah, because like National Socialism and National Bolshevism, they were maybe third positions to some degree, but they also rely on totalitarian regimes. Your ideology would break up it's against big government, but it would break up the big corporations and big banks by just localizing everything. So the local communities would have like small businesses, and they could just say that they don't want these banks or corporations operating out of their communities.
That's right, and so the whole idea is to kind of de-emphasize the role of the economy in people's personal values. It's trying to move away from just materialism, where materialism is the common belief that'll bring you happiness, and more of a sense of community. And so, although national anarchism is against the big banks and big corporations, and for kind of the smallholders, craftsmen and artisans and such like, maybe a good model is like the Amish model of economic development. It's more about getting people, or allowing people to have more direct control over their lives and their work and their labor and what they're able to accomplish in life.
Yeah, because it's the same with like government. A lot of the big problem I have with conservatives, libertarians, they speak out about big government, but these big corporations, like if you look at Walmart, they're just as bad as the government because they have so much power of the government. But it's really critical, even without national anarchism. I think the local community should be able to have a say. If they don't want like a Walmart in their community, they should be able to have a voter referendum on that and vote them out. But also having the food supply, agriculture, a big problem is we're dependent on this factory farming. And you would dismantle a lot of that and just have like food grown locally and a local supply of food.
That's right. And the big problem with libertarianism today is that its ideas have not evolved along with the development of globalization and the problems that globalization gives us in local communities and the world on the whole. So essentially, libertarianism is now a justification for the globalist system that exists today. What would make a libertarian happy? Well, fewer laws, fewer restraints on corporations, fewer restraints on economic development, and to hell with environmental laws, to hell with safety laws. And that would make libertarians a lot happier, but the truth is that would not be to our community's best interest.
Yeah, libertarianism. I used to be more kind of a libertarian, but the problem is it's all in some ways it kind of is like authoritarian because you wouldn't really have true freedom. The corporations and international bankers would end up filling the void for the government. The best way we can have freedom, I think, is by localized governments and giving local governments the authority. So some areas can be more libertarian, some areas more conservative, some areas more liberal, some areas can be like kind of ethno-nationalist areas. Like I sort of like you say, places like New York, San Francisco, and LA are very fascinating, interesting places, and they're great places to visit. But someone who wants their own community to be more homogenous should be able to have that choice. So it's all really, idea is kind of about freedom. Libertarians aren't about freedom in a sense because it's about letting each community be able to preserve what is unique about that. So if someone doesn't like the rules in one community, they can move somewhere else.
Right. And see, libertarianism would make a lot of sense in the 19th century. Like, a lot of sense. Like, I would probably be a 19th century libertarian. But in the 21st century, it doesn't translate into the kinds of problems and situations that we have today.
Yeah, and the conservatives are kind of a lot of the same problems, because the problem with the conservative movement, they basically have become sort of a corporate controlled movement as well.
Yeah, I mean, what is the biggest issue for conservatives today? I mean, it's primarily about making money, which is okay. That's not a big problem in itself, but it's not really an inspirational one. And Christian values, which is, again, that's other people's prerogative, and I can understand that. However, the Christian values continue to be trumped by the economic ones or business interests, and so you gotta just ask yourself, all right, so who's really benefiting from these policies? And many conservatives, if not most conservatives, have openly sold out the interests of their country through immigration, legal, and through these imperialist wars that don't benefit our country at all, probably going back, 100 years to invading the Philippines, to the Philippines until more recently with Iraq and Afghanistan. And all we continue to see is our interests being sold out. And at what point you got to ask, what else are we going to have left to sell? Because we've given up our culture, we've given up our sovereignty, we've given up the ethnic leadership of this country. And so I don't think that there's anything that conservatives would not sell out if they possibly could. And that's what's concerning to me. And I was raised in a conservative family. My family liked Reagan and all that in the 80s. And, it's just the conservative movement on a whole doesn't have much to offer the national life anymore.
Andrew, I just want to thank you for being on. All these movements have failed us. It's different, so it's important to sort of see what the alternatives are. I don't know if I don't agree with anarchism completely, but I think in comparison to these I think it does provide a lot of great alternatives, so I do support a lot of it. But just want to thank you for being on. That's all we have for tonight. Take care, and we'll be back with you next week.